Hi everyone, and welcome to Business Legal Lifecycle TV. My name's Jeremy Stretton.
And I'm Craig Mason.
And today we're running a new show, Monthly Legal Updater. So Craig and I were thinking about different ways that we can add value to our listeners and our viewers. And we thought that an obvious thing to think about is what legal updates have happened in the last month. So today is our first monthly legal updater for November 2017, if you're watching this on the replay. And we're going to basically use this show to go through what we see as the top 10 legal changes from Australia and around the world in the law that might affect you and your business. So what we're going to go through is we're going to look at what that change is. So we're going to give you a short, brief analysis of the change. And we're also going to look at what that means for you and what effect that might have on you and your business going into the future. So we'd love to know what you think of this new show, whether or not you're watching this on any of the channels that we posted on, whether that's Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, or listening to the podcast. We'd love to know what you think. Send us an email or make a comment. Our email is lifecycle@jeremystretton.com. And so today we're going to go through 10 different law changes. 8 of those are going to be from Australia and 2 are going to be international to give you a flavour of what's changing around the world. So Craig, if you want to kick off with the first one.
Yeah, let's start with something local to us at least. So this was a decision in the Queensland Supreme Court about a will. Now, it was an unsent text message that the court has said is a valid will in this situation. So person who unfortunately passed away obviously sent or was going to send a message to his brother that basically said you, as in his brother and a nephew, was to receive the house and my superannuation, put my ashes in the back garden, my wife will she'll get whatever she wants, we've got a rocky relationship and it's basically my ex-wife and blah blah blah. There's some cash behind the TV too, I think was in the message as well. So it was found in his mobile phone. So as I said, it was an unsent text message. So the wife brought the action in the first place about control over all the assets, and the brother then argued, and whoever, I'm not sure who, found the text message. So the judge found that because it specifically referred to the house and the superannuation, and it was specific to the brother and the nephew, that he understood his estate. It was relatively small, was what the judge said, and he obviously wanted it to go to the brother and the nephew and anyone else that was mentioned in there. The relationship between the wife and the deceased was obviously analysed as well. There were difficulties, they were separated, etc., etc. So in the end, it was ordered that it was valid and it was a will, and that's what happened in terms of the gifts. So what does that mean going forward? Obviously, there were some changes probably about 10 years ago or so that said that a will is still valid even if the formal requirements were not followed in exceptional circumstances. So in this instance, that would be one of those. So it's not a formal will in the sense that it's not signed or witnessed. It's obviously not on paper, but it was classed as something that's going to be a will. So an unsent text message. So pretty unusual, I would have thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing I love about that is it actually made news around the world. Yeah. I actually found out about it reading The Economist of all things, and it was a little excerpt in one of their stories about the fact that a unsent text message could now be a will, and I thought, wow, that's pretty remarkable. So yeah,
all right,
cool. So the second one to talk about today is for anyone local in Brisbane, is the East Brisbane resumptions. So if you live in Brisbane, especially if you live in the eastern suburbs, you'll know that Lytton Road and Wynnum Road going into the city are an absolute nightmare bottleneck in the mornings and the afternoons. So part of the current government and the current council's pledges in various elections have been to upgrade that road and add extra lanes. It's debatable, of course, whether or not that will actually fix the problem, but we'll wait and see. About 2 years ago, the council issued notices of intention to resume to the property owners, and probably for about the last 4 or 5 years, they've been dealing with the property owners to actually acquire their properties before resuming the properties. There were 10 properties that they hadn't come to an agreement for, And for whatever reason, on the 20th of October, the council decided that that was the day to actually resume the property. So what does that mean? The people that own the properties are no longer, or did own the properties, are no longer the legal owners of the properties. They now have 3 years to actually make a claim to the council. So I actually act for a couple of those people, and we're going to be making claims on behalf of the properties. So there were 49 properties in total, and these last 10 need to be basically finalised with the council. So what this means is that Lytton Road and the upgrade to Lytton Road is going ahead. There's been a lot of speculation, hasn't there, Craig, about whether or not it ever will. I think we know that they were saying back in like the 1960s that it was going to be upgraded.
Yeah, there's always been an easement running through Wynnum Road that allows, further up on Wynnum Road to resume land as well. So it's always been on the card since 1956.
But now it's actually going ahead, and that can, the council doesn't go and buy 49 properties and pay quite a substantial sum of money if they're not going to go ahead with that. So it is going ahead, and we understand from the council that construction is actually due to start in early 2018. We know, because we actually live locally, that a lot of the houses have already been removed, so they're gearing up to get that going. So if you live in that area, keep an eye out for the changes. And if you do know anyone whose house has been resumed, make sure that they're getting some advice from a qualified lawyer and valuer to make sure that they get their correct compensation. So, Craig, do you want to talk about the next one?
Yeah, and just quickly with the resuming as well, just there are businesses that are affected by that and can be affected by resumption. So if you are in business and all of a sudden, your footpath's getting taken, then, you need to talk to someone about that as well. So, important for business. So the next change that's coming through is regarding bankruptcy and insolvency. And this is a Corporations Act change. So that's across Australia. And Bankruptcy Act, sorry, yeah. And so that's in relation to the safe harbour, which is about insolvent trading, where it allows a director, if it comes in, that they can incur certain debts if they are taking a particular cause of action, which is basically to incurring that debt is likely to lead to a better outcome for both the company and the creditors as a whole. So it's something that that's going to come in. There's also the ipso facto thing. So that's where a lot of contracts will have, if there's an insolvency event that's a receivership or something like that, that automatically the contract can be terminated. There will be changes that won't allow that to happen anymore. That'll give them the same protections if they're going through the process to hopefully continue the business, that the contracts don't automatically get terminated, because that can cause a rolling effect. And if a business is trying to recover and then all of a sudden an event's happened and all of a sudden they're terminating all these contracts, then they're going to be in trouble there. So put it to have a think about. And then there's also going to be changes about bankruptcy in the term of that. So at the moment it's 3 years. That could be brought down to 1, and to affect current bankrupts as well. That could reduce that period down as well. So it'll still be a minimum of a year, but it could be reduced if you're in that time. As always with bankruptcy, it can be extended if you're not complying with certain things, and that can be extended up to 8 years. I think is the change. So that hasn't been passed through the Senate as at today, I don't think so, but it's probably going to go through, I think, is the commentary that we've seen. So
yeah, I think that the Senate, it's gone through its second reading speech, but I believe it's been referred off to committee, but they're pretty confident that it's going to pass. Yeah. So the first two have passed, the safe harbour and ipso facto. They come in July next year, 2018. But the 1 year bankruptcy, they're pretty confident will pass soon.
Yeah, and that brings it in line with other countries, including the United Kingdom, about bankruptcy. So pretty big change for the business world, I think, with the bankruptcy down from 3 to 1. So I think it'll have ongoing ramifications, hopefully good ones. But it'll also affect people's decision about whether to go through a Part 9 or Part 10, or do they just go bankrupt for a year. It could be a lot easier to go through just bankruptcy for a year if they don't have to worry about it for 3 years. Yep. So it would be interesting to see what happens there.
So the next one was announced probably a couple of months ago, but I think it's important for business owners to understand, and even if you're a business owner who's a consumer, and that's the plastic bag ban in Queensland. So from July 1, 2018, single-use lightweight plastic shopping bags are going to be banned. So the reason for this is quite simple. The majority of these things end up in landfill, and it's estimated that 16 million of them every year enter the environment. That's remarkable. Now I'm not a greenie. Anyone who knows me knows that, but I think that's pretty remarkable. So what does this mean? It means that retailers are going to have to start providing other types of bags for their customers. Now, we've all seen the big supermarket chains have already done that and have been doing that for years. But I was thinking about this yesterday, just that your little shop that sells takeaway food that gives you a plastic bag is going to have to look at a different mechanism to actually provide to their customers that food to be able to carry away, because those are single-use plastic bags. So retailers and shop owners are going to have to be really on top of this and come up with an alternative. I don't know whether there are any alternatives out there. If we hear of one, we'll provide it in the update in the coming months, but that's very important to think about. And also customers, you're going to have to start thinking about, well, what kind of green bags do we have? If you go shopping, are you going to get a box, or are you going to get green bags that actually carry all your groceries and what you buy out of the shops? And also just from a shop, when you go and buy if you go and buy takeaway and you get 3 containers with hot food, you don't want to be carrying those and scalding your hands. So how are you going to carry those going forward? And it might seem trivial, but it's something that at least for my whole lifetime, which is 38 years on the planet, it hasn't been something that I've had to think about, and now it's something that we're going to have to start thinking about it. Not that I've thought about it for probably the first 15, 20, but anyway, it's something to think about and where to go.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I think prices will probably go up. They'll charge, and it's a cost to them, the retailers, to provide you with a green bag or a Hessian bag or whatever it's going to be.
Yep.
They'll give you the option, obviously, and if you want to carry your groceries out in your arms, then you can probably do that. But you'll have to buy green bags, or if you're buying clothes, then I guess you could put them on rather than putting them in a bag. But yeah,
where are you going to put your old clothes?
Underneath.
Underneath. Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, so I think it's probably a good thing, but from the environment point of view. But yeah, anyway. Next one I want to talk about, probably a little bit unfortunate, or not probably, is unfortunate. It's a criminal conviction one. So this was the Cole Miller, the young fella that was killed in the Valley. The person responsible for the actual strike was sentenced recently. He received 7 years. He was with there was a fight instigated by 2 particular people. The victim and his friend were, trying to get away, and that's when the fight ensued. And as we know, it seems to happen all too often, unfortunately, that one punch can kill. And in this situation, Cole Miller unfortunately passed away. So 7 years, is I think a good punishment. I think the judiciary is probably catching up with the community about that it's sent a pretty strong message. I think that 7 years behind bars, and one of the other people I think that was responsible was also found guilty, and he was deported some time ago as well, and isn't coming back to Australia. So that's so not a great one, but it's something that's happened recently in terms of criminal conviction. So 7 years.
Even though it's not a pleasant thing to talk about, it's still necessary. I think people need to know what's actually going on out there. So I think that's an important one. So I think it's good to raise it, Craig. The next one are the data breach laws. So this is a change that's coming in February 2018. And basically it puts an obligation on business owners who find out that that the personal data that they have of their clients or customers or third parties has been breached, to notify those people. Now, this is a law that's been in place in the US for some 15 years, and Australia is now just catching up. So the time of recording this is November 2017, and this law comes into effect in February 2018. So we'll confirm when it actually comes in. But this applies to companies that are liable to provide protection for their customers under the Privacy Act, and that's businesses with a turnover of over $3 million. So if you've got a business that's over $3 million and you're storing clients' data or customers' data anywhere, you need to make sure that that's secure. If it's not secure and it does get hacked, and let's face it, even the best companies in the world get hacked, don't they, Craig? This happens. You have to make sure that within 30 days that you've disclosed it to your customers that their information has been hacked or breached or in some respect. And so there is actually personal liability that goes to the directors if they don't do that. So if you are a business that's over $3 million, it's a good idea, one, to make sure that you've got your data protection security in place, but two, to keep a monitor on it and make sure that if there is a breach, that you let your customers know. Now, if you let your customers know and you've done everything reasonable, there's no comeback on you, other than having to explain to some angry customers that this has happened. But as I said before, these things do happen. So make sure that you know and know what's going on with your business, and make sure that if you do get breached or you do get hacked, that you disclose it to your customers and then take steps to try and fix that up so it doesn't happen again. So that's the sixth one, which was data breach laws. Craig, number 7.
Yep, cool. All right, so ASIC changes coming through for liquidators. Essentially, it's a user pays system for liquidators, and they don't actually know what they need to pay until there's a reconciliation, I guess, at the end of the year. So pretty strange sort of situation where they don't know how much it's going to be, how do they provision for that, those sorts of things. They don't know what they're going to pay. So pretty strange. And from our discussions with some liquidators that we know, they're all sort of as confused as we are about how it's all going to work. And it doesn't seem like a great situation, but obviously there's method in the madness somewhere.
Well, I think it's ASIC. Just they know that they want to get people to pay, but they don't know what they want them to pay. So it's bizarre, but it's akin, isn't it, to the government saying that for all the documents that are lodged with the Titles Office, they're going to incur a fee. We're going to wait to the end of the year to work out how much the Titles Office budget is, and then split that amongst all the people who bought houses. It's akin to that, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty strange. So no doubt we'll talk about that again in one of the other future updaters, I think, and see whether or not it's been amended or changed or whatever. So strange. It'll
probably come up when we do phase 13 insolvency and winding up as well. When we interviewed a liquidator, I'm sure that's something that they want to have a chat about around that space, because it is a bit farcical. So number 8, and the last one of the Australian changes, we thought, how could we run a legal updater and not talk about the 7 politicians who were struck out from being elected and deemed ineligible because they breached the Constitution. So this happened on Friday, the 27th of October. 7 elected representatives, including the Deputy Prime Minister, were found to not be eligible to sit in Parliament because they had dual citizenships. Now, we all know the stories, if you followed the news, that they didn't know, that they had parents who were born in other countries, and by the virtue of other legislation, you can become a citizen of another country without you even knowing about it, which seems bizarre, but anyway, that's the way that it is, and that needs to be fixed now. Whether or not we'll get constitutional change, I don't know. I doubt it, knowing people, and the likelihood of constitutional change getting through. I think there's something like a handful of changes out of the 40 odd that have gone to the people have actually been changed, because to change the constitution, you need a majority of people in a majority of states. So that means if we've got a voting population of 15 million, over 7.5 million people have to vote yes, because we have compulsory voting. And if you've got 6 states, then at least 4 out of those 6 states, the majority of people in those states have to carry it. And that's there to protect all of us from the big baddies in the New South Wales and Victoria. I'm joking to anyone from New South Wales and Victoria, but that was the reason that it came in, was to basically give Queensland, South Australia, Western Australia and Tasmania comfort that New South Wales and Victoria wouldn't tell everyone what to do, because they had the majority of people back when the Constitution was founded. So what's the consequence of all this? The senators, well, it's pretty easy. Senators get to be replaced based on party lines, but the House of Representatives, people need to be re-elected. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on that. We'll update as we go through if there's any more changes to that. I think at the time of recording this, there was another senator who may fall foul of these sections of the Constitution. I think what would be fascinating, Craig, and I think someone's actually done it, is to go back through all the politicians. I think there's something like 2,100 of them, and work out how many people before some journalists thought about this were actually not elected properly in the past. I think it'd be funny to go back and see that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the costs involved with all this is going to be high, and the the rule, I guess, seems like a good one in the sense that if you've got dual citizenship, you don't want to be seen to be making decisions based on a different country.
Mm.
But the fact that they didn't even know about it, then they couldn't be doing that. So the whole thing just seems a bit silly. But anyway, that's the Constitution for you. So anyway, moving on to the next one that we wanted to quickly discuss, and that's there was a UK. He was or is a poker champion, but he's fallen foul of his latest gambling in baccarat. So I don't profess to know exactly how this all happened. If I did know how to do this, and I probably wouldn't be sitting here, I'd be at the Crown Casino.
Getting banned from the Crown Casino.
But what happened was the fellow teamed up with another gambler who was described as the most dangerous advantage player in the world, and they amassed 8 figures in winnings, as I said, in baccarat over a couple of days. And that was according to news.com.au website. So check it out there. But they did what's called edge sorting, where they were gaining an unfair advantage while gambling at a casino, obviously. They don't touch the cards or count the cards, but somehow, and this is the bit I don't quite understand, they're convincing the dealer to arrange the cards in a particular way that allowed them to determine, what cards are going to be dealt, which obviously meant that they could bet accordingly and amass 8 figures. The judge found that it was a carefully planned, sting, Ocean's 11 style, and that they took positive steps to fix the deck, and ruled that it was cheating and that they weren't entitled to the winnings. So obviously, what does that mean? Be careful at casinos, but it's not necessarily, just because you think it's legal, it may not be when it comes to, ripping off a casino, essentially. So something to think about if you're into that sort of stuff, that, you're not touching the cards necessarily, but it still could be considered cheating. And obviously the casinos are going to be keeping a close eye on those sorts of things because, 8 million or 8-figure sum, is going to affect their bottom line. So,
absolutely. Yeah, well, and so the final one, for anyone who is in Australia or New Zealand, you've probably heard about the Eminem copyright case against the National Party in New Zealand. So in that, the court found that the National Party infringed Eminem's copyright to his song Lose Yourself in their advertising campaign for the 2014 election. That was ordered, and they were ordered to pay over $500,000 in damages, which, when you think about it, is a substantial sum of money. Now, it was used 186 times during the campaign, and so basically that award is based on that number of breaches. Now, they argued that the song was originally drafted for them, but the court found that there were close similarities and that there was an indiscernible difference in the drum beat and melodic line and piano figures, and made it strikingly similar to Eminem's song. So what this means is that you really need to be careful in what you use. So we're in an age of big data. You can copy anything off the internet. You can copy music, you can copy videos, you can copy everything. If you copy, you're going to get found out, because it's also very easy to find out when things are copied, and very easy to get that kind of information out there. So you need to be really careful. Make sure that you seek legal advice. One part that I neglected to say was that the $500,000 damages was actually a reduced figure on what they could have been fined, because they actually did go and get professional commercial and media advice as to whether or not that song was right before they used it. That advice was wrong, and they were still fined, because at the end of the day, you're responsible for what you do. But you should seek legal advice and if there's any concern whatsoever, you should get consent from the publisher or get a waiver from the person who owns the copyright in that song before you go using it. It's really quite simple. And as I say, as with the advent of AI, as it becomes more and more prevalent and useful, it's going to become something that's going to become a lot easier for people to find. So make sure that if you are going to use someone else's material, if you haven't created it yourself, or if you think it sounds like someone else's or look like someone else's copyrighted material, that you actually take steps to make sure that you can get around the copyright or pay the person some royalties for what they did. They created it, so they're entitled to payment for their creative endeavors. So that's it for the 10 topics, Craig.
Yeah. As Jeremy said, yeah, we're going to do this every month. We welcome your feedback about this style of show, or if you've got any legal updates that you wanted to share with everyone or wanted us to talk about, then send us an email or comment on Facebook or whatever it is these days, so we can talk about that at the next one. So we'll be back next month with our legal updater, and our next show in the business legal life cycle is on Monday for Fast Fix Monday. So hopefully we'll see you then, or you'll be listening to us then. Thank you.
Thanks very much.